Hello world, and welcome to
Right on.
Coming Up, all types of fantasy fiction. In a vast literary genre, high, low, epic, urban, paranormal, and romance are all types of fantasy fiction, along with a host of others. It's not one single genre, it's many. So, why does genre matter? In a world where genre mashups and crossovers abound and publishers chase down the next big thing, new genres like romantasy pop up in response to changing tastes. Readers know what they like, so writers mess with genre at their peril. Sanderson tells a story of an author who subverted the fantasy genre halfway through a book, with no hints, clues, or warnings. Trad fantasy readers threw it on the bonfire in disappointment, while the alt-fantasy crowd never picked it up at all. Good idea. Poor execution. So, what are the common denominators for all types of fantasy fiction? You won't believe this. Firstly, fantasy contains people, places, or events outside of our everyday experience. Fantasy equals the fantastical, something unthinkable in the real world. And it's not science. If there's hard science beyond what we have in the real world, it's sci-fi, science fiction. If it's unbelievable and there's no science, myth, monsters, magic, then it's fantasy.
Probably.
Fantasy includes characters doing unreal, unbelievable things. Ready, setting, go. What else places a story in the fantasy genre? Let's go with setting. High fantasy takes place in an imagined world, unconnected to our own. The Lord of the Rings is high fantasy. It takes place entirely in Middle-earth. No one there knows anything of Tolkien's Oxford, World War I, New York, or Edison's light bulb. The same goes for George Martin's Westeros, Howard's Hyboria, and Erickson's Malazan. Discworld, for all its satirical references, is high fantasy. The world is a fantastical construct with no connection to our own, except for Terry Pratchett's biting satire on our real world. Low fantasy takes place either in our world or in worlds connected to ours, containing characters who acknowledge the fantastical elements and know the difference between the two. Narnia is low fantasy. The Pevensey children travel there from 1940s England. The children are little fishes out of water. Alice in Wonderland is similarly a portal fantasy, featuring an Edwardian child in a surreal setting. A Connecticut Yankee in the court of King Arthur? That's low, portal fantasy. As is the Wizard of Oz Harry Potter, maybe a contemporary version of Tom Brown's School Days, but it is also low, portal fantasy. The Dresden Files is low urban fantasy. It takes place in a recognizable version of our world, albeit with witches, warlocks, and demons. Harry Dresden is a noir detective, in the know and in his element. He fights the good fight, while the everyday Joe remains largely ignorant. Ditto the Shadowhunters of the Mortal Instruments series. They hunt demons in our contemporary world, alongside warlocks, werewolves, vampires, fae, and all manner of supernatural creatures. In New York, with libulbs. Reboot, reimagine, rehash. Anything derived from Greek mythology, Norse mythology, the Mahabharata, or Arabian Nights remains high fantasy, as they occur in a version of antiquity that is outside of recorded historical time and place. They may reference versions of places and civilizations we know existed, but not the ones we have in the archaeological record. There are gods, monsters, and heroes, engaged in epic battles that can only exist in our imagination. Lately, we've had plenty of fairy tale retellings. What about classic fantasy retellings such as Heartless and Cinder, both by Marissa Meyer? Or the multi-level derivative A Court of Hearts and Hunger from Colleen Oakes? And for a while, we had Greek mythology retellings, the Song of Achilles, Circe, Ariadne, Piranesi. Myths updated and reimagined for the meme generation. in various subgenre configurations, including literary fiction with capital letters, crossover fiction. Now we come to the minefield of crossover fiction. It's a Frankenstein's monster with a long pedigree. Dracula is gothic horror. It is also urban fantasy. The story takes place in a recognizable contemporary Victorian era where Van Helsing fights supernatural vampires. A Court of Thorns and Roses? High fantasy. Within the young adult, YA fantasy romance or romantasy subgenre. Fourth Wing. More YA high fantasy adventure with romance. Beware of crossover, subgenre mashup novels. All too often these are trend chasers that lead to literary dead ends. Remember Twilight and the whole slew of werewolf romance, vampire romance, and fantasy love triangle romance? What about YA dystopias? The Hunger Games, Maze Runner, and the rest. From there we descend into a labyrinth. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Is it historical horror romance or historical fantasy romance? Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter? Alternative historical horror fantasy? That's a lot of subgenres packed into one book with one intriguing story hook. Casting the net wide. And if the constant mutation and crossbreeding of genres isn't enough to confuse everyone, we have to address the target market. Adult, new adult, young adult, or middle grade. Spicy, profane, or clean. This is where marketing often triumphs over content. Where a novel's genre collides with comparable titles. Where a good on-market, on-message blurb and an eye-catching cover image attracts eyeballs regardless of the actual genre on the page. I mention this because I have to decide how and to whom I market my series among all types of fantasy fiction. No one says it's easy. Thanks for stopping by. You can like and subscribe to the channel, or go to robincatling.com.